Hello and welcome back to Life Single Review. We're so happy to have you here with us today. We hope you're staying strong and finding moments of peace in your daily life. Today's story explores a question that many of you have been asking. Why doesn't Dae just tell the truth to Maya's grandfather? Why does he protect Thuk's mother's secret when he could easily expose her cruelty and clear Huyen's name once and for all? On the surface, it might seem like Dae is being weak, or perhaps he's afraid of confrontation. Some might even wonder if he's somehow complicit in protecting an abuser. But the truth is far more profound and beautiful than that. Today we're going to discover what real love actually looks like. Not the dramatic, possessive kind we see in movies, but the quiet, respectful love that honors another person's choices, even when it's difficult. What does it mean to truly love someone? Is it about protecting them at all costs? Or is it about respecting their decisions even when you disagree? Can love and respect coexist with silence? And how do you support someone without taking away their agency? Join us as we explore Dee's perspective and understand why his silence is actually the loudest declaration of love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Dae didn't learn about Huyen's past all at once. It came to him in fragments. Like pieces of a broken mirror, she was slowly gathering the courage to show him. Late at night, after Maya had fallen asleep, Huyen would sometimes share a memory, cautiously, painfully, watching his face for signs of judgment or pity. She told him about the endless work, the verbal abuse, the hunger, the loneliness of being invisible in a house full of people. And Dee listened, really listened, not planning what to say next, not interrupting with advice, just holding space for her pain. The first time Thuk's mother appeared at their door, Dee saw something he'd never seen before. A flash of genuine fear crossed Huyen's face before she quickly masked it with composure. After the woman left, Huyen was quiet for hours, mechanically going about her chores with trembling hands. That evening, she finally told him about the rainy night, about being thrown out with baby Maya, about nearly losing her daughter to pneumonia. Dee felt rage building in his chest. Hot, protective, demanding action. His first instinct was to find Thuk's father immediately and expose every terrible thing that woman had done. But then Huyen said something that changed everything. "I just want to forget it and move forward with my life, Dae. I don't want to live in that darkness anymore." There was such quiet determination in her voice, such clarity about what she needed. And Dae realized something crucial in that moment. This wasn't about what he thought was right or fair. This was about what Huyen needed to heal and find peace. Over the following weeks, Dae watched carefully. He saw how Huyen's shoulders would tense every time someone mentioned Thuk's family. He noticed how she'd sometimes wake from nightmares, gasping, reaching for Maya to make sure she was safe. But he also saw her resilience, the way she chose joy despite everything, the way she sang while cooking breakfast, the way she laughed at Maya's silly jokes. Huyen wasn't broken. She was healing, on her own terms, in her own time. One evening, after Thuk's mother's second visit, Dee couldn't hold back anymore. "Why don't you tell the truth to Thuk's father?" he asked gently. "I've seen him. He seems like a good man. He would help you. He would make things right." Huyen was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her words were measured and thoughtful. "I know he's a good man, Dee. That's exactly why I can't tell him. If I reveal what his wife did, their whole family will fall apart. He might divorce her. Thuk will have to confront his own cowardice. Their reputation in the village will be destroyed." Dae wanted to argue that they deserved it, that justice demanded exposure. But Huyen continued, "I don't want revenge. I spent too many years being hurt by that family. If I tell the truth now, I become the person who destroys them. I become someone who causes pain to others. And that's exactly what Thuk's mother did to me. She caused pain because she had the power to do it. I refuse to be like her." In that moment, Dee understood something profound. Huyen wasn't choosing silence out of fear or weakness. She was choosing it out of strength. The strength to break the cycle of cruelty, to refuse to perpetuate harm, even when she had every right to do so. She was choosing peace over vindication, healing over revenge. And if Dee truly loved her, he had to respect that choice, even if every fiber of his being wanted to fight for her in a different way. He reached over and took her hand. "I understand," he said simply, "and I'll stand by whatever you decide." Huyen's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. For perhaps the first time in her life, someone was truly listening to what she wanted, not telling her what they thought she should do. The confrontation Dae had been dreading came on a warm afternoon about a week later. He was working on the house, hammering planks of wood into place, when he heard someone calling out a greeting. Dee looked up to see an older man standing at the edge of their property, distinguished looking, with gray hair and the kind, weathered face of someone who had spent his life teaching children. This had to be Mr. Hai, Maya's grandfather. "Good afternoon," the man said politely. "I'm looking for Huyen. Is she home?" Dee wiped the sweat from his forehead and climbed down from his work. "She's at the market right now. She should be back in an hour or so. Can I help you with something?" Mr. Hai smiled, though there was a sadness in his eyes. "I'm Maya's grandfather, Thuk's father. I just wanted to visit my granddaughter, perhaps bring her a small gift." Dae felt his heart rate quicken. This was the man Huyen was protecting, the man who had no idea what his wife had done. Dae gestured toward a bench under a tree. "Please, sit down. Would you like some water?" As they sat together in the dappled shade, an uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Finally, Mr. Hai spoke. "You're Huyen's partner, aren't you? The one helping her raise Maya?" "Yes, sir. My name is Dee." Another pause. Then Mr. Hai said carefully, "I've heard from the neighbor that you're a good man. Hard-working, kind to Huyen and Maya." Dae didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded. Mr. Hai continued, his voice thoughtful. "Can I ask you something? Do you know why Huyen and my son divorced?" The question hung in the air like a trap waiting to spring. Dae felt his mouth go dry. This was it, the moment where he could tell the truth, could expose everything, could give Huyen the vindication she deserved, whether she wanted it or not. He could see the genuine confusion in Mr. Hai's eyes, the desire to understand what had happened to his son's marriage. This was a good man asking an honest question. Dae's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at him to speak up, to say, "Your wife beat Huyen. She threw a 3-month-old baby out into a storm. She nearly killed your granddaughter and then lied to you about it for 7 years." The words were right there, burning on his tongue. Mr. Hai deserved to know the truth. Huyen deserved to have her name cleared. Justice demanded honesty. But then Dae remembered Huyen's face when she talked about moving forward. He remembered her saying, "I don't want to be someone who causes pain to others." He remembered that this wasn't his story to tell. It was hers. And she had made her choice. Who was he to override that choice, even with good intentions? What right did he have to decide for her what was best? To take away her agency in the name of protecting her? Dae took a slow breath and chose his words carefully. "Sir, I think there are some things that only the people directly involved have the right to talk about. I respect Huyen too much to speak for her." Mr. Hai's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's an interesting answer. It suggests there's more to the story than I've been told." Dae met his eyes steadily. "I think if you have questions about the past, you should ask Huyen directly. If she wants to share her story, she will. But that's her decision to make, not mine." Mr. Hai studied Dae for a long moment, and Dae could see the wheels turning in the older man's mind. "You're protecting her," Mr. Hai said finally. "Not from me, but from having her choices taken away. That's admirable." He stood up slowly. "I'll come back when Huyen is home, and I'll ask her directly, as you suggest. But let me tell you something, young man. The way you just handled that question tells me everything I need to know about your character. Huyen is lucky to have you." After Mr. Hai left, Dae sat alone for a long time, his hands shaking slightly. He had just let a golden opportunity slip away. The chance to expose Thuk's mother, to clear Huyen's name, to bring truth to light. Part of him wondered if he had made the right choice. But deep down, he knew he had. Because loving someone doesn't mean making their decisions for them, even when you think you know what's best. It means trusting them to know their own mind and supporting them in their choices, even when those choices are difficult to understand. When Huyen returned from the market that evening, Dae told her about Mr. Hai's visit. He watched her face carefully as he recounted the conversation, saw the way her eyes widened with concern when he mentioned the question about the divorce. "What did you tell him?" she asked quietly, setting down her basket of unsold vegetables. Dae looked at her steadily. "I told him that if he had questions about the past, he should ask you directly. I said it was your story to tell, not mine." The silence that followed felt eternal. Huyen stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, to Dee's surprise, her eyes filled with tears. You didn't tell him?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Dae shook his head. "No, I didn't tell him anything." Huyen sank down onto the bench, her hands covering her face. "But why?" "You could have cleared my name. You could have made him understand that I'm not the one who abandoned the marriage. You could have exposed what his wife did. Why didn't you? Dee knelt down in front of her, gently pulling her hands away from her face. Because it's not my decision to make, Huyen. You already told me you wanted to keep the past in the past. That you chose silence for your own reasons. What right do I have to take that choice away from you? Just because I think telling the truth would be better doesn't mean I know what's best for you. You're the one who lived through that nightmare. You're the one who has to live with whatever decision is made, not me. Huyen was crying openly now, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of something else entirely. Relief? Gratitude? Recognition? Do you know, she said, her voice breaking, in my entire life, no one has ever respected my decisions like that. When I lived with Thuk's family, his mother decided everything. What I ate, when I slept, how I should raise Maya. Thuk never asked what I wanted. He just did whatever his mother told him. Even my own family, they mean well, but they're always telling me what I should do, how I should handle things. She reached out and took Dee's rough, calloused hands in hers. You're the first person who has ever asked me what I want, and then actually respected my answer. Even when you disagree, even when you think there's a better way, you still let me choose for myself. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Do you have any idea how much that means to me? Dee felt his own throat tighten with emotion. I want you to be vindicated, Huyen. I want everyone to know what you survived and how strong you are. I want Thuk's mother to face consequences for what she did. But I want your peace and your choice even more. You've already survived so much. You've already made a life for yourself and Maya against impossible odds. You're not weak for choosing silence. You're incredibly strong. Strong enough to break the cycle of cruelty. Strong enough to choose healing over revenge. He paused, making sure she was really hearing him. You've already decided that living well and moving forward is more important than getting even. That's your choice to make. I don't agree with Thuk's mother getting away with what she did, but I agree with you having the right to decide how you want to handle your own past. And if standing beside you in silence is how I can support you, then that's what I'll do. Huyen pulled him into a tight embrace, and Dee felt her shoulders shake with silent sobs. But he knew these tears were different from the ones she'd shed over her past trauma. These were tears of being truly seen, truly heard, truly respected for the first time in her life. And in that moment, Dee understood that love wasn't about grand gestures or fighting someone's battles for them. Love was about honoring their autonomy, even when it was hard. Later that night, after Huyen had fallen asleep beside him, Dae lay awake thinking about what love really means. He had always thought that loving someone meant protecting them, fighting for them, solving their problems. But today he had learned something different. Real love means respecting someone's choices, even when you disagree. It means understanding that being supportive doesn't always mean taking action. Sometimes it means standing still and trusting the person you love to know what they need. Thuk had claimed to love Huyen too, probably believed it. But when it came down to it, Thuk chose his own comfort over her well-being. He chose his mother's approval over his wife's safety. He loved the idea of Huyen, but not enough to respect her as a full human being with needs and rights of her own. His love was conditional, dependent on Huyen fitting into the role his mother had assigned her. Dae's love was different. It wasn't about possession or control or deciding what was best for Huyen. It was about partnership, respect, and trust. It was about recognizing that Huyen was not a problem to be solved or a victim to be rescued, but a strong, capable woman who had survived hell and come out the other side with her compassion intact. She didn't need Dae to fight her battles. She needed him to stand beside her and respect her decisions about which battles to fight and which to walk away from. And so we come to understand Dae's silence, not as weakness, not as complicity, but as the deepest form of respect and love. In a world that constantly tells us we should fight, should speak up, should seek justice at any cost, Dae shows us that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is honor someone else's choice for peace. Huyen has already fought her battle by surviving, by leaving, by building a new life. She doesn't owe anyone revenge. She doesn't owe anyone exposure of her abuser. She owes herself peace, and Dae understands that. The difference between Thuk and Dae is striking. Thuk loved Huyen, but couldn't protect her because he was too weak to stand up to his mother. Dae loves Huyen and protects her by respecting her strength, by trusting her to know what she needs. Thuk's silence came from cowardice. Dae's silence comes from respect. One is the absence of courage. The other is the presence of wisdom. This story reminds us that true love doesn't mean making decisions for someone else for their own good. It means supporting them in their own decisions, even when we might choose differently. It means trusting that the person we love knows themselves best. Thank you for joining us on Life Single Review today. What do you think about Dae's choice? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.